These are notes for lesson 88 for Algebra 1, multiplying and dividing rational expressions. A rational expression is just a fraction with variables in it, like x, y, z. So let's see, you'd have something like 6x to the fourth y over 21x y cubed times 7x squared y squared over 3x cubed y squared. And you're just asked to multiply. So before you multiply, as with any fraction, you want to try to cross cancel. Like you want to try to cancel stuff out, stuff that's in the numerator and in the denominator. So what I'm going to do, this may take too long. I really want to change colors so you can see what's going on. And I may not do this because it may take too long. So let's see. For example, I can take 3 out of 6 and it'll leave a 2. I can take the 7 out of 21 and it'll leave a 3. I can take this x and this x cubed. If I were to combine them together, that would be x to the fourth. So I can take this x and this x cubed and cancel that x to the fourth. See these y squareds, they're exactly alike, so cancel. As long as it's on the top and then the bottom, you know you can cancel, and we've done something like this before. These are just on a bigger scale. I can take y out of y cubed and it leaves a y squared. So then looking on the top, the only thing I have left is a 2 and an x squared. That's all I have left on the top. Then on the bottom, I just have a 3 and a y squared. And I can't cancel anything else because I don't have any like variables left, and I don't have anything that I can take out of the 2 and the 3. So that's an example of what happens on that. So let's try another one. Let's see, 5x squared y over 12xy to the fifth times 2x to the fifth y cubed over 4x to the fourth y to the fourth. So that's the way it starts. Again, you always want to cross multiply. I'm not going to change colors, one, because it's messing up my marker, and two, it just takes too long. So let's see. I'm going to take 2 out of 12, and it leaves a 6. Now, you could have taken the 2 out of the 4. That's another option. I just saw 2 and 12, so I'll take 2 out of 12 and leave the 6. Let's see. Then I could take this x and this x to the fourth and cancel that x to the fifth. So that x and that x to the fourth, we combine them, that's an x to the fifth, so I can take that x to the fifth. I could take this y and this y cubed together, that's y to the fourth, that'll cancel that y to the fourth. So that y and that y cubed cancels that y to the fourth. Then looking at the top, what I have left now is 5x squared. And then on the bottom, it looks like I have a 6 and a 4 that would multiply and be 24. And then I have that y to the fifth. So then again here, there's nothing else left. And where I got that 24 was this 4 and this 6. They're both on the bottom, so you multiply. You don't divide them, you multiply. And then I had that y to the fifth and that x squared. So that's the final answer on that one, because these aren't like letters, so we can't cancel them, and 5 doesn't come out of 24, and they don't have any like terms. So let's try another one. 8x cubed over 5y to the fifth times 2x squared over 9y cubed. So let's see. Want to cross cancel if I can. 8 and 9 don't have anything in common. 2 and 5 don't have anything in common. These can't cancel. This x is on top, this x is on top. They do not cancel. This y is on bottom, this y is at bottom. They do not cancel. So nothing cancels. That's okay. So we just do 8 times 2, which is 16. 8 times 2 is 16. X cubed, x squared is x to the fifth. On the bottom, 5 and 9 is 45. And then y to the fifth and y cubed is y to the eighth. And that's what you do on that one. So sometimes things don't cancel, sometimes they do. So don't try to cancel stuff if nothing cancels. Let's see. 6x squared over 5y to the fourth times 3x over 7y squared, 6x squared over 5y to the fourth times 3x over 7y squared. So this is another one where nothing cancels. 5 and the 3 don't cancel. 3 and the 7 don't cancel. You know, you can do that as well. 6 and 5 don't cancel. 6 and 3 are both in the top, so you can't cancel them. You need to multiply them and get 18. X squared and x is x cubed, so you have an 18x cubed on the top. Then on the bottom, 5 and 7 is 35. And then y to the 6th. So y to the 4th and y squared is y to the 6th. Again, we couldn't cancel here, so we can't cancel here. We do all our reducing first before we multiply. Okay. Then they can start looking like, or they will start looking something like this. And you're going to have to factor. You're going to have to factor these trinomials, and you're going to have to factor this 3x minus 15 like we've talked about before. So factoring the 3x minus 15, you can take a 3 out. That leaves x minus 5. Then factoring the x squared minus 2x minus 15, I want the factors of negative 15 that give me negative 2. So that would be x minus 5, x plus 3. So now again, this is over 1. So this is all on the top. X minus 5, x plus 3 is on the top. 9 is on the top. And 3 times x minus 5 is on the bottom. Anything top to bottom, doesn't matter where it is. If it's on the top and on the bottom and it matches, that's what you cancel. So you can cancel this x minus 5 with this x minus 5. And you can take 3 out of 9 and it leaves a 3. So nothing is left on the bottom. So I don't have anything on the bottom. On the top, I've got a 3 and an x plus 3. So my final answer is just 3 times x plus 3, which you can leave it that way. You don't need to distribute through. You can just leave it as 3 times x plus 3. In fact, I would prefer you not to multiply it through, because that's getting you ready for something else, leaving it factored. So let's try another one of those, mainly to remember factoring the trinomials and how to factor like 4x minus 32. Okay, so we factor 4x minus 32, take a 4 out. That leaves x minus 8. X squared minus 5x minus 24, remember, is over 1. So x minus 8, x plus 3. That's how that factors, because we need the factors of negative 24 that give negative 5. And then we cancel. X minus 8, x minus 8 cancels. One's on top, one's on bottom. 4 goes into 16 and leaves a 4. Nothing's left on bottom. A 4 is left on top with the x plus 3. So 4 times x plus 3. And again, leave it distributed. Do not multiply through. Leave that factored. Leave it distributed, because it's setting you up for something else. Okay? Then you'll have, you know, different types of things. 8m squared n plus 2mn over 2m times 15 over 24mn plus 6n. So again, we got to factor. We need to factor 8m squared n and 2mn. So I need to take something out of both of those. Well, out of 8 and 2, I can take a 2. And out of m squared and m, I take an m, and I can take an n out of both of them. Okay, so I'm going to write that down here. So if I take 2mn out of 8m squared n, that leaves 4m. Because I take the n out, I take an n out of n, I take an m out of m squared, and I take a 2 out of 8, and it leaves a 4. Plus 1, because I'm taking 2mn out of 2mn, that leaves a 1. Over 2m, all I did was rewrite that one. That's all I did was rewrite it. Okay, so I factored this and rewrote it underneath. That's all I did. And then 15, we leave alone. Out of 24 and 6, I can take a 6. And out of mn and n, I can take an n. So I'm going to take a 6n out of these two. Taking 6 out of 24 leaves a 4. M, and I took the n. And then taking 6n out of 6n leaves a 1. Now, again, we look top to bottom. Anything on top that's the same as on the bottom, I can cancel. So 4m plus 1, 4m plus 1 cancels. 2m and 2m, because that's multiplication, those cancel. Okay? This little n right here, see that little n right there? That little n right there takes this little n right here by the 6. Cancel those. I can take a 3 out of 15, it leaves a 5, and I can take a 3 out of 6 and leaves a 2. So there was a lot of stuff going on this one. Okay, a lot of stuff going on. Now notice, we are just left with 5 over 2. Everything else canceled. Everything else canceled. And I showed you how everything else canceled. But you got to factor first. Make sure you factor first. And then we got that 5 over 2. Let's try another one like that because just a lot of stuff happened. So let's see. 3m squared n plus 2mn over 2m times 11 over 24mn plus 16n. 3m squared n plus 2mn over 2m times 11 over 24mn plus 16n. Okay, so out of the first two, I can take an m and an n out. That leaves 3m plus 2 over 2m. I just rewrite it. So I factor the top and rewrote it, times 11. Now here, out of these two, I can take an 8. I can take an 8 out of 24 and 16. And then I can take an n out of both of them. So that leaves 3m plus 2. That left a 3m plus 2. So now I'm looking at this. I've got a 3m plus 2 and a 3m plus 2 top and bottom that can cancel. I've got an m on the top and an m by the 2 that can cancel. I've got this n and this n by the 8 that can cancel. And then nothing else cancels. That leaves an 11 over 16 because there's an 8 and a 2 left on the bottom. An 8 and a 2 left. So 2 times 8, 16, and then 11 on the top. So 11 over 16. Okay, now we can multiply them. The title was multiplying and dividing rational expressions. So now we're going to look at dividing rational expressions. And the only difference, guys, is you have to remember to flip that second fraction. So let's see. 3x squared y to the 5th over 5x squared y to the 6th divided by 9x cubed y squared over 10x y cubed. Okay, so that's the new one. That's the one we're looking at. It's division. So on division, we always flip the second one. So when you're working your homework, when you're working the practice and the ones on the homework, if it's division, go ahead and write it down as multiplication and always flip the second one. Okay, but for notes, write this one down. Then we're going to rewrite it, flipping that second one. Now again, when you do your homework, just write it already flipped. Change it to multiplication and flip it. Then we do what we did on the first few that we did. We try to cross multiply, like 5 will go into 10 and leave a 2. 3 will go into 9 and leave a 3. This x squared on the top and that x squared on the bottom can cancel. There's lots of different ways to cancel this stuff too. This isn't the only way. X can come out of this x cubed and leave an x squared on the bottom. Y squared can come out of that y cubed and leave a y on the top. Now, this y to the 5th and this y right here can cancel this y to the 6th. So y to the 5th and y go away. So then looking at the top, everything is crossed out but the 2. On the bottom, everything is crossed out but the 3x squared. So it'd be 2 over 3x squared left. So again, division, just like multiplication, you just have to remember to change it to multiplication and flip the second one. That's all you have to do on that one. So let's see. Let's try this one. 20r squared minus 10r over 35. divided by 4r minus 2. 20r squared minus 10r divided by 35. And we're dividing this whole thing by 4r minus 2. Now remember, that 4r minus 2 is over 1. So when I flip it, because I have to flip it, it's the second one because it's division. 20r squared minus 10r over 35 times 1 over 4r minus 2. So it puts that 4r minus 2 in the bottom. Okay, so watch that. Be careful with that. And then factor. So let's see, out of these two, I can take a 5r. I can take a 5r out of it. That leaves 4r minus 2. When I take 5r out of 20r squared, it leaves 4r. When I take 5r out of 10r, it leaves a 2. And nothing else factors. 35, 4r minus 2, that doesn't factor. Notice I have a 4r minus 2 on the top and a 4r minus 2 on the bottom. And I can take this 5 out of 35 and it leaves a 7. So on the top, it's r. On the bottom, it's just 7. So I'm just left with r over 7. Okay. Let's see. X squared minus 5x minus 14 over x squared divided by x plus 2 over x. Now, these are the ones like this where you try to get ahead of yourself and start crossing out the x squareds and crossing out the x's. You cannot do that. You cannot cross out these x squareds. You cannot cross out these x's. You've got to factor first. You've got to factor this x squared minus 5x minus 14. You've got to change this to multiplication and flip this one. Okay? So I'm going to factor this and change it to multiplication and flip it in the same step. So x squared minus 5x minus 14 would be x minus 7, x plus 2 over x squared. So I factored that x squared minus 5x minus 14 into x minus 7x plus 2, changing it to multiplication and flipping the second one. Then we do what we've been doing. Cross stuff off. X plus 2 and x plus 2 cancels. X over x squared cancels to leave an x. So x minus 7 over x. And you cannot cancel these two x's. These two x's don't cancel because that's connected to the 7 with the subtraction sign. And you do not cancel subtraction with division. You only cancel multiplication with division, just like we canceled this. We canceled this x plus 2 because it's being multiplied by x minus 7. So that's why we can cancel those x plus 2's, because we're just canceling multiplication. You cannot cancel that x right there. So be careful with that. Let's try another one like that. X squared plus 4x plus 3 over x squared divided by x plus 3 over x. Again, your first thought is, oh, okay, I'll cancel those x squareds, I'll cancel those x's. You can't do that. You've got to factor first. We've got to factor, we've got to change to multiplication, and we've got to flip the second one. So x plus 1 times x plus 3 is how that x squared plus 4x plus 3 factors. Leave it over x squared times x over x plus 3. So then again, x plus 3 cancels. Take an x out of x squared, it leaves an x. So you're left with x plus 1 over x that you can't do anything else with because of that addition sign. Okay? Okay, then the last one I want to show you is example 5 on page 579 in your books. We've got a business that makes a profit of x to the 4th over 100x squared plus 100x. For each item sold, there are x squared plus 5x plus 4 items sold. You want the total profit, so you're going to multiply. You're going to multiply those two, which means you've got to factor everything and see if you can cancel. But it's makes a profit on each item sold, and this is the number of items, so you'd have to do the profit each item times the item to get the total profit. Multiply. So nothing happens with x to the 4th. You can actually take 100x out of the bottom one. It leaves an x plus 1. And remember, this one's over 1, and it's x plus 1 times x plus 4. because I need the factors of 4 that give me 5. X plus 1 cancels. I can take this x out of x to the 4th. It leaves an x cubed. So then I'd have x cubed times x plus 4 over 100. Right there. And that's how you're going to work practice H. So when you look at practice H, you're going to set it up just like this, factor what you can, and then write down what you have left. Okay? So let me go ahead and give you the assignment for this. We're going to do a few of them together. You're going to do the warm-up, which is on page 576. You're going to do the practice A through H. Then you're going to do 1 through 15. But like I said, we're going to do a few of these. There's a few things I want to show you, so let's see. Okay, I want to start by looking at a couple on the warm-up. So on the warm-up, on page 576, I want to start by looking at number 3, just to remind you, it's 8b to the 4th over 2b to the 9th. Just to remind you how you do this, because years past, students have kind of gotten stuck on this, but it's something we've gone over, and it's something we just went over in lesson 88. So 2 should come out of 8 and leave a 4. B to the 4th comes out of B to the 9th and leaves a B to the 5th on the bottom. So it would be 4 over B to the 5th. That'd be your final answer there. You're just simplifying. Then number 4, I want us to look at together. I want to show you how you'd work this one. Again, it's a lot like what we just did. And it's a lesson we've covered before, okay? So we got to factor. You've got to factor the top, you've got to factor the bottom. So I need to factor 12y to the 4th minus 18y cubed. So I can take a 6. Actually, I'm going to write it underneath. I don't want to write it above. So I'm going to rewrite this. Can I fit it beside it? I'm going to try to fit it beside it. I'm going to squeeze it in. So I can take a 6y cubed out of both of these. I can take a 6y cubed. That leaves a 2y minus 3. That's what it leaves. Okay? Now these, most of you are probably thinking 7. I can take a 7 out, which is correct that you can take a 7 out, but it's not the biggest number you want to take out. You can actually take out 14. So you want to take 14y out of these. 14y out of 28y squared gives a 2y. And then 14y out of 42y leaves a 3. Notice now, top and bottom, I've got a 2y minus 3 and a 2y minus 3 that'll cancel. I can take y out of y cubed, it leaves y squared. I can take a 2 out of 6, and I can take a 2 out of 14. So right now, let's just write what I've got. I've got 6y squared over 14. That's what I've got right now. But I can take a 2 out of the 6 and out of the 14. So that would leave a 3y squared over 7. That'd be your final answer on number 4. And that's why I wanted to do number 4, because there's a lot to it, okay? So that gets 2 of your warm-up ones done. And then there's one on the practice I want to look at, which is D. I want to show you D on the practice. So this is D on the practice, 8m plus 6m squared n over 12 times 8m over 24m plus 8mn. So that's what it is in the book. So we want to factor and try to cancel. So let's see, 8m and 6m squared n. I can take a 2m out. That'll leave 4 plus 3mn. When I take 2 out of 6, it leaves a 3. When I take m out of m squared, it leaves an m. And when I can't take an n, so I put the n. Over 12 times, nothing happens with 8m. I can take an 8m out of these two. These two I can take an 8m out of. So take an 8m. That leaves 3, because I take 8 out of 24 leaves a 3. Take the m. And then leaves an n. Because 8, take 8 out, it's gone. Take m out, it's gone. And it just leaves that n right there. Then Cancel what we can. Well, the first thing I see that cancels is the 8m. Next, 2 goes into 12 and leaves a 6. That's all we can do. So on the top, we're left with m times 4 plus 3mn over 6 times 3 plus n. And that's why I wanted to do that one, because that one was weird. It left a whole lot more than we were used to. And again, leave it distributed. Don't multiply through. So that's the way you do D. Then I also wanted to remind you about 3 and 4 on the lesson. Number 3 and 4 are deciding whether it is quadratic or not. Whether it's quadratic or not, which we've got to rewrite it in standard form, which means we've got to get y by itself. We've got to get y by itself. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to divide by x. So y minus 2x equals, well, if I do 18x squared divided by x, x goes into x squared and leaves an x, so that's 18x right there. Then if I add 2x, y equals 20x. This is not quadratic. Why is it not quadratic? Because there's no x squared left. This turned into an x. When I divided by x right there, this turned into an x. And don't distribute that x there. It makes it'll, you can get there in the end. You could get there. You could distribute through. Anyway, but you could divide first like I did too. So, but it's not quadratic because it doesn't have an x squared. So that's number 3. Just wanted you to do some reminding you about quadratic. And then number 4 is also the same. So it's 2 and then y minus 2x equals 6x squared. So we can go ahead and distribute that 2 or divide by the 2. Let's distribute the 2 just to see what would happen if we distributed the 2. So then we'd add 4x and get 2y equals 6x squared plus 4x. And then divide each piece by 2. So y equals 3x squared plus 2x. This is quadratic. Why? Because you've got an x squared. Sorry, I had a glare on that. It is quadratic because we have an x squared as the biggest exponent. So y equals 3x squared plus 2x. That is quadratic. Let me just show you back up here. You don't have to write this one. In case you do go ahead and distribute, this is what it would look like. You would add 2x squared, and you would get xy equals 20x squared, and then you would divide by x. You still get 20x. It's still not quadratic, but I did want to show you that if you distributed through, that's how it would work. Then the rest of them, real self-explanatory. Oh, I did want to show you number 13. I also wanted to show you number 13. And I wanted to rewrite 12 for you. Make sure that you rewrite 12 correctly. It should be x squared plus 7x minus 60 before you factor. So make sure you write that correctly before you factor on 12. Then on 13, we've got 64a squared, actually no, a cubed b minus 32a cubed plus 16a squared b minus 8a squared. So the way I would start this one, common factor out of these two. This is that factoring by grouping. So you could take 32a cubed out of both of them. That would leave 2b minus 1. You can take an 8a squared out of these two. That would leave 2b minus 1. Notice the parentheses match, which is good. So that means I have 2b minus 1, and I have 32a cubed plus 8a squared. Not finished. The majority of you will probably get here, and then you'd stop, but you're not finished because you can take common factors out of these two. So 8a squared, I can take an 8a squared out of them. That leaves 4a plus 1, and then my 2b minus 1. So that's the way 13 works. On 14, you're just factoring. On number 14, you're just going to take that x squared plus 4x minus 21 and just factor it. And then on 15, you're just writing that conjunction. So on 15, it's going to be between -2 and 2. They're open circles, so I just gave you the answer for 15 as well. Okay, so that should help you out on those. This is due, I forgot to write this. This is due Thursday, April 2nd. That's when this one's due. That's lesson 88. It's due Thursday, April 2nd. Yeah, so there you go.